teams is going to get their own breakout room. And that means you're going to be able to go and meet with them, ask questions from them for 15 minutes. Then we're going to come back for 5 minutes and people are going to share out what they learned. So it's impromptu, kind of new event, and we're gonna try some new things too. So really pleased that you're all here. This is the latest purchase in the carbon removal world involving Milkywire and Klarna. We have Robert Hoglund here. We also have 5 of the purchases that were made. We have the people from the team representing. We've got Vida from Terrafixing, Niklas from Inplanet, Duncan and Martin from Octavia, Ryan from Parallel Carbon, and Kevin from Takachar. And I want to mention that all of these teams are graduates of AirMiners Launchpad. And so it's really cool to see these teams taking off and starting to remove carbon and sell carbon as part of this program. To kick things off, yay, AirMiners, says Andre. Heck yeah. To kick things off, Robert, would you just give a real quick, 1 minute overview of what the heck is this, what's going on, and tell us a bit about the latest here.
For sure. The Climate Transformation Fund, hosted by Milkywire, is a charitable fund that companies donate to instead of buying offsets. And it's a fund set up to try to help reach global net zero to maximize climate impact in the long run. So it's supporting both durable carbon removal through pre-purchases. It supports nature protection and restoration, and also decarbonization, including advocacy and policy projects. And we encourage companies to implement an internal carbon fee to tax themselves on their emissions and use that as the budget for making a contribution. And we have about 11 donors now. It's the 3rd year we're running it, or the 3rd round of support. So Klarna is the one that sort of announced the sum of money that they're contributing, but we also have Spotify, for example, as a donor to the fund, and a bunch of others as well. So yeah, we ran a call for proposals and have announced the CDR companies that were selected.
Excellent. That's great. And I also want to note that we have people on this panel are calling in from all over the freaking planet, all sorts of time zones. And so that's what it's going to take to remove billions of tons of carbon, is people all around the world working to remove that carbon. So I know in the audience we have a ton of people that want to know more about this program. I think specifically from the perspective of if you're a startup and you're thinking about applying for the future programs, how to get your carbon sold. And so I wanted to jump to the teams a bit and ask them, how did you hear about this program? How did you get connected to what's happening here? I want to kick it over to Vida first. How did you get connected to this RFP project, request for proposal?
Yeah, thanks, Tito. Well, we kept seeing the name Milkywire. Either it was in a newsletter from Carbon Business Council, and then the Director Capture Coalition. There was a newsletter that came out, and we also saw several posts in the AirMiners Slack. And so it was in January of 2023 that we got an email specifically from Robert. I guess he must have gotten our information through AirMiners, and then we were invited to submit our proposal for that. I have to say the name Milkywire was kind of strange. And so it was good that we were able to see it from several different networks, and even seeing it through the Slack of, in AirMiners was certainly helpful. So yeah, we filled out their Google form, their call for proposals, and then we were invited to submit the full one. That's how we got connected.
Nice. I love that. Yeah, it's great to hear about kind of that, seeing things from a lot of different spots, or seeing it a bunch of different times helps. And so just kind of, even if you see something the first time, maybe you see it a second time and you start to think, hey, this might be a thing for us. Next, I wanted to hear Martin. How about you? What was your story of getting connected to this?
I'm keen to hear the story behind the Milkywire name as well, actually, if that can be shared at some point. But my story was also being connected to Robert through the CDR community. For me, I think it was Chris Neidel from the Open Air Collective. We're a tight-knit community, so it's really great to start chatting. At the time, that wasn't in scope, and that was more than a year ago. But we've since actually moved very much closer to actually taking CO2 out of the atmosphere. And yeah, it's been great to sort of then follow that up with this application process, to send the application, have interviews, and then really just talk about a vision for CDR in Kenya, where I think we were quite aligned. That was great.
Cool. Yeah, I love that community aspect to it. Like it's, there's people that are removing carbon, and there's just so many different ways to support. If you just email somebody and say, hey, did you see this thing? I assume you saw it, but I want to make sure you saw it. Stuff like that goes a really long way towards actually getting things happening. And so these purchases are kind of first of its kind for many companies. And I want to highlight that and talk with teams about, what does this purchase mean for your company? Kevin, you had a cool story there when we were talking earlier. What is this? So you've been doing, and just give a little bit of the context, like you've been doing this for a while, and now this is happening. What does this mean for you guys?
Yeah, so thanks so much, Tito. So just an intro, we are developing small-scale, low-cost portable systems that turn crop and forest residues into higher-value bioproducts, such as biochar-based fertilizers, chemicals, and biofuels. We have been doing kind of pilots since 2018. Back then, there wasn't really too much kind of carbon credits, right? So a lot of the business was based on the concept that essentially we sell the output product at a price higher than what it costs to produce the input and the operation. And it's really starting like 2020, 2021 that we first heard about a carbon credit and joined the AirMiners program. And at first we were like, is this a kind of just a bubble or a hype? Right. So I think it has gone a long way till today, where I guess this is sort of our first kind of a purchase.
Nice. That's great to hear. Ryan, how about you? You had some insights on what this purchase means for your company.
Yeah, I mean, it's fairly well timed for us. This commercial validation is super important for fundraising. But we've designed a product that the market wants, and this is proof. I guess what more can you ask for an early stage DAC or CDR process? But more broadly, and I think this probably pertains to everyone in the community, anyone building companies in the space. This is just the first step. We all have to scale to bring costs down and increase supply of CDR. The economies of scale are, somewhat easy to model, at least on paper, from my company's perspective. But there's unknowns for all of us around supply chains and learning curves and what's actually going to happen as we start deploying. And purchases like this just begin the process of learning and scaling, and hopefully all to great effect, and reduce the CDR costs and increase supply. Well, that's the goal of AirMiners, right?
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, there's really something to. I mean, these are real agreements, real negotiations that you're having with a customer, with a first customer, and it really makes a huge difference for some of the teams to be able to do that. And so I want to ask Robert a couple of questions based on your experience. You've done this now, I believe, did you say this is the third year that you've made these purchases?
Yeah.
Do you have any advice so people in the audience are, 6 months, 12 months, maybe 24 months, kind of ahead of where you're behind where these companies are? Any advice for somebody that's 6 months, 12 months out from looking at a program like yours? Any advice for them for what they should be thinking about or getting in position for?
Yeah, at least from our side, we've been focusing a lot on sort of the catalytic effect of a purchase. So not just that it's high quality tons and a sustainable solution, but also like looking at very much at the long-term potential and the future cost. So not looking that much at sort of how much it costs today or what the future price is going to be. And then what's the effect of our support? Like, are they already very well supported, like up and running? Or could it become like a catalytic purchase to get a new solution out there and tested? So that's some of the things that we're looking at. So and part of the application. So we're gonna very likely run a new call for proposals at the end of the year. You can register on. I can put the link in the chat. And definitely interested in people pitching their sort of novel ideas. What are you doing differently? Why is this something that's brings something new to the CDR ecosystem? Why do you need to get a purchase? What would it mean for you? Things like that, I think, are what we're looking for.
Got it. And then so you've built this, you've prototyped this. I like to talk about buyers as innovators in that way, right? You're prototyping, you're raising funds, you're building budgets, a lot of the same functions that people removing carbon are doing. Any advice to anybody in the audience who's kind of setting up a program like this or interested in purchasing themselves?
Yeah, the fund is open for companies to donate to. So, I mean, if you are someone who wants to support carbon removal and climate solutions, then feel free to get in touch, and we'd be happy to welcome you into the fund. It's of course been a learning process and trying to answer like a very difficult question. Like, if you have a pot of money, how do you spend that in a way that maximizes the impact of climate? And we're of course not done with that question or think that we done the ultimate support, but like it's an ambition, and that's what we're sort of trying to get that. And as we grow and like time goes, it also becomes more and more important to sort of follow up as well. Like the first year, it's like you make some good picks and it's all based on what you think is going to happen in the future. But then once a few years have gone, then it becomes important to also see that, okay, it actually had a good effect. We can prove that there were good things happening here. And I think it also comes together with like a big shift in the market, where 2 years ago, carbon credits from avoided emissions costing a few dollars per ton was still going pretty strong. And I think 2021 was the best year for those types of credits. So trying to sort of convince donors or buyers that taking an alternative approach, supporting very expensive solutions, is actually the best one. Was it a bit hard, but it's becoming easier with sort of the realization that many of these traditional credits are not living up to the promise, and that we actually need carbon removal and people need support now. So it's it's definitely developing.
Yeah, I appreciate that and the insights there. I mean, it's talking with you, it sounds like a startup in any other way. It's like, yeah, we're trying things, we're experimenting, we're talking to new people, and we're giving this a shot. I want to go back to the teams a bit and ask, Robert's talking about the impact of these funds and of these purchases. What impact are you seeing that will have on your company? Is there anything kind of specific that you're planning? I think Martin, you had mentioned something about this.
Yeah, no, thanks. Duncan, do you want to speak to this one from our team? Basically, Duncan's the engineer who builds the machine, so he's in a better position there.
Yeah, so hi everyone. Yeah, it's just as Ryan had said, it's a great sign of product market fit, and it's a great signal to investors. And for us, really, especially as an engineer, it's at Octavia, it will allow us to build more machines. And with each machine we're building, we're getting better at it. Our energy consumption is going down, which really matters for a solution like ours. And ultimately, it gets us closer to a state of the technology that can scale very quickly. So in a nutshell, it's a great sign of product market fit, and it allows us to build more of our solution.
Nice.
Quickly, something like I think 8 to 10 more machines, which is exciting. So
wow,
lots of loading here.
That's real. That's capacity. I want to go over to Niklas for just a final question before we go to audience Q&A. So Niklas, do you have any advice for other teams that are thinking about applying to programs like these, or even this specific program next time the application is up? Do you have any perspective or advice to share for them?
Yeah, indeed. I think pick up also as what Robert said. I think everything is maturing. So I think you should have a ever more solid methodology and ideas around what you're doing. Obviously, also recommended to do the launchpad first to get a good overview of the carbon market and how sales works here. And yeah, I think that's really the key point. So focus on what's your impact, what will the purchase really change or mean for you. And I think have a clear vision, answer, idea, even if you work with uncertainties, why you're working on them. So I think that's a very, very important point. Yeah, I would I think share these kind of directions. And best of luck. Who wants to try? I just would say give it a try. It's worth it. Even if you don't pass, I think we're lucky at the moment that Inplanet we kind of have a run, to be honest. But we had also a phase before that where we were suffering a little bit. And I must say, even the applications you suffer and you don't pass, you learn a lot. Sometimes you're more in the ones that you pass, maybe. So yeah, go for it, I guess.
Yeah, certainly. I get that. Certainly, like applying for these programs can be helpful because it can just help you shape your thinking, or it asks a question that you're like, oh, I never thought about it in that way before. So it's a really powerful contribution to the space. I want to open up to, let's see about audience questions. So hit them in the chat. Let's see, I see Hardeep has one. Anybody else has questions? Deborah, any questions that you got in DMs?
I have not received any questions yet, Tito.
Okay, got it. Oh, we did have the most popular question was about the Milkywire name. I don't know if that's something that Robert you want to share, but
Sure, it's a play on the Milky Way, the galaxy, and then like a wire to connect things. You can wire money, etc. Like I'm not the founder of Milkywire. It's Nina Jankowski, and she's the one who came up with the name. But I think it's something like that.
Great, I love it.
Actually, the quick anecdote. I had the first folder in the Google Drive. I had a name Milky Way the first day. I was always thinking you guys were called Milky Way, and I was like, Felix at one point I was like, no, it's not that name.
There you go. That's the story. I see questions streaming into the chat. This is great. Keep them coming. We've got, again, for context, we've got like 10 minutes for audience Q&A, and then we're going to do 15 minutes of breakout rooms with each of the teams. So let me see what we got here. There's a question for Robert from Hardeep. What is the make or break for catalytic investments? I would like to hear your views about current apprehensions with regard to investments in deep ocean biomass burial, and probably to extend that to kind of your thinking on catalytic investments in general, kind of things at the edge of your thinking on these purchases.
I think it's simple answer is this a high potential solution that needs support right now that we can get started? I think that's sort of the basis of trying to work out if it's a catalytic investment or catalytic support. So getting those kind of high potential solutions out there and tested, and that might otherwise not have happened this fast, or would have been harder to scale. And solutions that are novel and more unproven are also interesting. But of course, we also sort of weigh in the technological readiness level, and sort of if it's very, very large uncertainties, then that could affect the potential in the future because you have to discount it a little bit. And also, of course, looking at sort of where's the science at when it comes to any risks for sort of ecological effect, etc. So, which can be hard sometimes when there's not a lot of published science on all topics.
Got it. Did you address deep ocean biomass burial? I also saw a question here about, do you support methane removal too?
Yeah, well, I didn't address it directly. So there was a few that in the application process, there were 117 applications for CDR. It was 250 in total, but 117. So it was quite it was a lot. And I think 70% had never made a sale, so there's a big need for more buyers. And a few of them were deep ocean biomass burial. We're not like excluding that. We didn't choose it this year. I think probably need to find some external experts also that have more expertise on the ocean side to really feel comfortable with this kind of open ecosystem solutions where there's not as much sort of science done, but definitely we're open to that as well. When it comes to methane removal, like it's also not excluded per se, but it doesn't fit into carbon removal, the category, but we wouldn't be against methane removal. Although I can talk about that topic sort of in more detail, but maybe for some other time.
Got it. Thanks for that. Tons of questions streaming through. This is like classic AirMiners event where there's like this waterfall of questions. it's a lot of stuff that's aimed at kind of Robert understanding better how you're thinking, how you're looking at this. So I'm going to focus there for a bit. How are you thinking about? Patrick asked about is there, when you're thinking about pricing, price per ton, future price per ton, is there a price that you're aiming at, or that you're aiming to achieve?
Well, the lower the better. So it's more kind of on a range. In our framework, we put a grade on sort of the future estimated costs, which can be hard to compare also because we have to look at people's estimated energy consumption. For example, if you're talking direct air capture startups, like some people might assume a very, very low electricity price when they have their estimated long-term price. Others are much more cautious and have like triple the electricity price in their calculations. So you have to dig a little bit deeper also to find out what the actual like projected long-term cost is, and to be able to compare that between companies. So we don't have like a limit where it has to be $100 or something like that. It's just graded higher if it's a believable lower price, and it affects the final score in the framework.
This is a question too in the framework. Does the framework include permanence as a factor in the score or in the price?
Yeah, it's only durable carbon removal that we have. But so we in this category, it's biochar and upwards sort of. So 100-year and upwards. But that's also something that's a part of the scoring system. Yeah, so one of the factors.
So there's a threshold. There's like a yes no in terms of permanence, but there's also a scalable.
Yeah. And for example, biochar can have more or less permanence depending on sort of the production process and where you apply it as well. So that could affect the score. But most of the ones that we assessed have like pretty high score on the permanence.
Yeah. Got it. This may be a question. Let me see. This is maybe a bit outside the scope of the program, but in terms of Ryan Galloway was asking about, do you support MRV development with these projects? As far as I can imagine, you're purchasing tons. Yeah, how does that connect for you? Are you supporting?
Yeah,
MRV?
that's a great question. I think the answer is, for some solutions, like the need for MRV is kind of simpler. Direct air capture is not as difficult, but enhanced rock weathering, for example, Niklas and Inplanet are working very hard on the MRV, and I mean, maybe most of your efforts, it would be fair to say, is focused on that. And then an early purchase is kind of more research tons, where you do deployment, but MRV is like maybe the majority of what you're doing actually. So we're not waiting for something to be certified and done. It's this kind of early things where the purchase also helps hopefully then develop the standards for how to do the MRV in this way.
Got it. I am getting a ton of questions from Robert. So if anybody has any questions for the teams themselves, that's good. I saw one for Steve was asking Kevin, do you have any plans or aspirations to operate in Canada?
We actually have a unit in Canada that we have been operating, though we are still kind of in the early pilot stage. So stay tuned.
All right, we always like those stay tuned announcements. Tankson had a question. So other than funding, this is for all the teams, other than funding, what are some of your immediate needs? What are other pieces that you need to secure to operate and scale? And I encourage anybody who has like a really specific need, shout it out. You've got, it looks like over 80 people from the AirMiners community here. So if you have a need that you're looking for, please share it.
I guess one of our very honest recent need is, as we are already an international organization with a base in Germany and a base in Brazil. If anyone has some very good international IP transfer taxation lawyers, that we very much appreciate it, because it's a pretty complex fun task we're trying to solve at the moment.
All right, international taxation lawyers. Excellent. Ryan?
Yeah, we would ask if you know any engineers, like as in STEM, chemical engineers, electrochemical engineers, process engineers, who are looking for a job in the UK. up in Manchester. Send them our way. We're about to hire like crazy.
All right, giddy up. Anybody else needs?
I think just maybe a very quick note, and I think this is a broad one, but I think we're keen to sort of see an ecosystem grow up around us, and that is things like is the people who offer insurance against technology risk? Is there people who, again, funding is one thing, but also like that breaks down into financing and biomobilization and so on, and then the MRV parts, even with geological storage, like MRV can be improved quite a bit, for example. So there's a number of things that we're sort of still piecing together as an industry. Just to give you a random example, like I'm putting insurance costs in my TEA, but I don't currently have co-partners for that. And that's less against the like risk of reversal, but more like the technology risks that lots of buyers are thinking about. So there's definitely a need for just developing the ecosystem more and do think about the entire value chain that CDR needs to flourish. And I think there's a lot of openings there still for people to come along and grow things.
Right. Anything? So was there anything specific that you need in there? You need an insurance company?
I think maybe not as directly. I think it was just a more general note. But yeah, buyers. I mean, echoing Robert very much. Buyers.
All right. How much carbon do you have available?
Thousands.
Oh, you might cut out, but you said thousands. I'm going to interpret that as thousands of tons. You're still on. Now you're on mute, though. What's that? Yeah, what's yours?
Yeah, we're using this stage, I guess, for some recruitment. So we're also looking into growing our science team. So any great soil scientists, geoscientists out there, please shoot your CV into our recruitment channels. We're looking for more talent on the science side.
Nice. Anywhere in the world? Is it an in-person job?
Yeah, I mean both. Yeah, so we look for talent in Brazil, here around Piracicaba, Sao Paulo, but also internationally. So our recruitment zone is usually we always say Berlin plus minus 5 hours. So there's quite a range that people can apply, and I think it's also one of the tips I would give everyone who is recruiting and doesn't need an engineer building something at a side. We find it's enormously rewarding by having such a big geographic pool of people we can pick from. We're really happy about the talent pool that's applying, and it's very satisfying so far, our recruitment processes.
Yeah, I love that note. Yeah, if you can hire anywhere is pretty big. There's a lot of people on the planet you can pull from. And if you need to be physically together. I get it, and just make sure you take advantage of whichever one you need. Anybody else have a need or a need they want to share? Thanks, Tankson, for the question. That's really solid. Let's see. There was this spicy question from Alex that I wanted to talk about a bit, and this is probably for Robert and all the teams. And I'm going to kind of reword it, but it is around like in terms of setting the criteria for these purchasing agreements. Yeah, any comments on kind of how they're created? In this case, they're created by the team at Milkywire working with its partners. In the case of Frontier, it's built out by the Frontier team. But any comment on kind of who's creating these requirements, who's setting the requirements? If you were a startup company setting the requirements, how would they be different? In terms of what you want to provide to buyers, or kind of if you put on your citizen of Earth hat, like is there any requirements that you'd love to see added to these things, to these purchasing agreements, that would support the person who's just a fan of Earth getting a good Earth out of the deal? And open to any of the panelists that have some thoughts there. It is kind of an eyebrows raising question. It's kind of like, what the? So maybe no takers on that one. Kevin, were you unmuted to talk about that?
I'll pass for now.
Whenever I see unmute. Yeah, worth thinking about.
Interested in that. Like if there's feedback on sort of what we're evaluating on and sort of what we're missing. Yeah, definitely interested in knowing that.
Where would somebody go to look at the requirements that you have or the criteria that you're making decisions based on?
Yeah, on the link I posted for the call for proposals, there's more information and you can click your way through. So sort of to see what we're looking at. We didn't publish like exact the scoring sheet, but sort of the overall things that we're looking at.
Okay, I'm just repasting your message. So that's the open call. So if anybody has any feedback, you recommend they get in touch with you.
Yeah, that would be great. Definitely interested in that.
And what's a good place to get in touch with you?
Yeah, AirMiners or LinkedIn or email. I can put my email here as well. Check all channels.
Great. I did see a question here about big businesses becoming interested in the space. I'm curious, Robert, if you have anything to share about, did you see some of these larger organizations applying to your program?
A question about if there's large CDR companies applying?
Large CDR companies, or how there's kind of these kind of bigger industrial players that are pivoting a bit into CDR. Did you see any of them popping up and saying, hey, they wanted to be a part of the program?
Some sort of like semi-big would apply, but not these huge industrial ones that we have seen show up like just in the last few weeks, like huge specs plants and stuff. We didn't really see that, but yeah, definitely a big range of sizes, but maybe a little bit more towards the early stage.
Got it, which makes sense. I mean,
yeah, smaller purchases also, a couple of $100,000, like that kind of, a little bit more, but that kind of range.
Yep. Great. Let's see, we got any other questions here? I see Joe. Joe, you have your hand up. You want to, you can come on video and unmute if you like, or put your question in the chat if that's easier.
I'm unmuted. Can you hear me?
Hey, yeah. What's up, Joe? What's your question?
Great event this afternoon. Listen, I was on the website. I couldn't find a way for a company like ours, which, we have this plant biocrop-based process that captures CO2 at the rate of $35 a ton US, but there's no place for a company, from what I can tell, like ours to apply. Is there a link that I missed? I'm asking Robert, I think.
Oh yeah. The chat is filling up, but yeah, Tito pasted it. You can paste it once more. It's called for proposals, but it's not open. But you can register your email address for it to be notified when it opens next time.
Fantastic, thank you.
Yeah, there, Robert just pasted that link in again. So there's a big green button that says "Get notified on next call." So that's the place to pop up. I see another. So we're going to be moving into the breakout rooms in a second. So each of these 5 teams, you're going to be able to dive in and ask questions to them about their application process or their needs that they have that you want to help with. I see Sarah had one last question we can squeeze in around is financial additionality a criteria for the purchases, Robert?
Yeah, for sure. Like additionality in the sense that would this have happened unless someone paid for it? And like if it would have happened anyway, then yeah, it doesn't fit in, or it gets very low score. And for many, it's not like, for many, it's very, very clear that there is very, very high additionality. No one's going to do it unless someone pays for the carbon removal. But there are solutions that are sort of mixed, where sort of additionality can become more of a harder thing to tangle out.
And I see that on the you had shared that they're on the website. So the framework for the Climate Transformation Fund, that link that I just posted, that has your selection criteria.
Yeah,
so really
although
applaud you for sharing that.
Probably updated a bit more. It's this is still up from 2021, so I should probably add some more information. But yeah, that's the basic things, basic criteria.
Great. All right, we're gonna head into breakout rooms. Deborah's going to open those up, and so everybody can hop into a breakout room and go hang out with one of the teams and help them with their needs or ask questions. And we're going to come back here about 5 minutes before and ask people to share what they learned or connection they made or a lead they got on a problem.
Everyone, the rooms are open, but you do need to choose which room you'd like to go into.
The breakout rooms chat is not recorded, Bill. So yeah, we've got a room for Niklas at Inplanet, looks popular, Martin and Duncan from Octavia, Ryan from Parallel Carbon, Kevin from Takachar, and Vida from Terrafixing. I see people are joining those rooms now. Just going to give it a minute for people to move around. And by the way, if you haven't joined a room yet, you're welcome.
Jordan, I think we're getting some feedback from your device.
Anyway, if you haven't joined a room yet, join one, and you can also bounce around, so you can also move to a different room later. And so for everybody else that's here, let's have some chat with Robert, who's still here. Anybody who has any questions specifically for Robert, you're welcome to drop them in the chat, and we can learn a bit more about the purchases that are in the works and what's next.
Niklas is popular at 14 people.
Well, to kick things off, is there anything else you want to share about the fund for people that are here?
I mean, something I didn't mention explicitly is that we do both kind of seed and scale. So like talked a lot about these kind of new solutions, but like Biochar, for example, is a little bit more of a mature solution. Where it's more about scaling very sustainable practitioners of it up, and we do that as well. So it's not just restricted to like unproven tech.
Got it. And I think you had mentioned that some of the applications were in that category.
Yeah. There's a lot of Biochar companies that apply as well. Like you can definitely see that. Yeah, that's where people can get started fairly easily. Like there is technology, you can go on Alibaba and buy a pyrolyzer. So like you can get started if you have biomass, and you can become a producer.
And those are and how are those a fit or not a fit for your fund?
I mean, we support 3 different Biochar. There's two Biochar before, and now 1 Biochar this year. So like we do want to scale up those kind of solutions as well. Although the competition between the Biochar companies was pretty tough. So like there's many really good Biochar products that I wish we could have supported.
Yeah, same here. That's something we go back and forth on with the Launchpad Accelerator program. It's like, if is it a project that, is there new technology that we can really help with, or is it a matter of, kind of you're buying some systems from somewhere else and kind of just executing on them? There's really not much we can add there. Yeah, so it's a challenge.
And you see some innovation in terms of sort of how you do it, like what feedstock is it. Now there's a lot of innovation on distributed biochar, which is quite interesting. Now we didn't support one of those. Now Kevin is kind of more a mix between this. Well, maybe it's distributed because it's a mobile machine, so it's a bit of a mix of distributed and and centralized. I take that back. It actually is a bit distributed, but there's those systems that are even more distributed, that the farmers do it completely themselves, and then they take a picture of it and upload it to like an app, and there's verifiers that come out at some point to check that the biochar was produced, but a lot of things is done by the farmers themselves. And yeah, several companies that are sort of innovating in that space. So that's also interesting. Although there's challenges with low-tech biochar production, that you really need to do it right. And how do you ensure that you have this kind of constant flame curtain, for example, so that you don't have a lot of methane emissions, etc. And also that the feedstock is from a good source and that it's put into soils. But there's innovations to solve all those things as well. So it is interesting.
One question that I get a lot from founders is around co-benefits. How does that feed into your methodology, if at all?
Yeah, it's also something that we look at, and give an extra plus for any solutions that have strong co-benefits as well. So it does factor into to the equation, but it's not a requirement. I mean, many solutions don't have strong co-benefits, so it's not a requirement.
It's definitely kind of what we've seen too, is there's not particularly a market for co-benefits yet. A lot of these things are kind of not a deal breaker. They're not priced in. They're more like, if you're on the line and you have some co-benefits, then that's good, but that's about it in terms of methodology. And
I mean, that's something where maybe we should value co-benefits in a more structured way, but it's sort of, since the products are so different, also some have huge co-benefits, others have zero, and it can become a little bit difficult to measure it and to compare it. But it is important. It is definitely good if you can have that kind of effect as well.
And I saw back to technology development, I saw there was a question to answer in the chat, but just to expand upon a bit, in terms of TRL, when you look at the 8 companies that had purchases, what TRL level were they, and kind of are there kind of hard limits on kind of low end or high end?
It's pretty wide, but 1 and 2 would be excluded, like maybe 3, and then sort of 4 to 7 is probably the sweet spot. And we could do 8 as well for biochar. It's probably 8 in many cases, or 8 or 9. So but many of the solutions are in the kind of 4 or 5 range, maybe 6.
Got it. And when you're referencing like buying a pyrolysis machine on Alibaba, what TRL level is that?
It's probably pretty high, right? Like it's depending on, like, if you're running biochar systems already, you probably are TRL 8, or maybe even 9 in some cases, if you're already producing thousands of tons. But maybe I wouldn't call it a 9, because you might have not solved everything so far, like on how to do it at very large scale.
Yeah, I get it. I did see we had a question back to the co-benefits question. What if the co-benefits add to carbon negativity? I don't totally get that one. Then maybe that makes more sense to you, but to me it seems like. But yeah, what if the co-benefits add to carbon negativity?
Well, then it will be factored in the potential, I think, since it's increasing the sort of the impact of it.
Yeah, that's what I thought too. Basically that co-benefit would then translate into your carbon removal amount. Let me see. By the way, if anybody needs help moving, you can DM Deborah through Zoom, and Deborah will help you move in the meetings. Hardeep, I saw you had a question.
Yeah. Hi, Robert. So basically, the similar question what I had asked, I was basically trying to understand the apprehensions that are there with respect to deep ocean biomass burial. Is it, when you said scientific interventions, is it more to do with the effect on the ocean ecosystem or something else as well?
Yeah, things like that. Like what happens if you dump a lot of biomass on the ocean floor, and does it affect the ecosystem somehow? And yeah, also this kind of I guess that would be the biggest question, but are there other unknowns effects? What happens if you take a lot of biomass and take it out of the nutrient cycle, things like that? It's the sort of the further away from what already has been sort of discussed in the literature more extensively, then sort of the more difficult it becomes for us as well to really do a good assessment, and we might not have all the expertise, and it can be difficult to find it to really make a proper assessment. And the bar becomes higher if we think there's a PR risk, to be perfectly honest as well. Like if this could look bad, then it becomes more difficult, right? Because then we really need to be sure it's a great idea.
Sure. So actually, I get similar questions from the buyer side whenever I'm trying to make a sales pitch, and that I was assuming that the catalytic focused people will have more, will be more open towards it, but you have similar apprehension there.
I guess we would be more open than like a regular buyer, that it's not fully proven, but we would be more sensitive to uncertainty if there's potential risks than if there's just uncertainties around the effectiveness of it.
Okay. Thanks.
Got it. Yeah, the thing that's coming up to me, because we asked the question about co-benefits and then this sort of like negative externality, those things are almost, it's not that they're the same, but they're kind of on a continuum, right? I mean, if you're talking about the co-benefit of ocean health, depending on the buyer, depending on the audience, that might also be perceived as, well, hey, actually, like, we think that's more of a risk than a co-benefit. So it's definitely a balance there. I see there's somebody has their question raised. I'm sorry, I don't know how to pronounce your name, but you have your hand up. Hey, what's up?
Hello, thanks. The name is Meital.
Meital, great. Nice to meet you.
Thanks for giving me a few minutes. Robert, I have another question regarding methane. You said that it seems that you have more to say about methane. We're developing a solution to remove methane from the air. We're also trying to find catalytic programs that will allow us to jumpstart. So do you have any suggestion how we should address that?
Yeah. I think it's something I would be interested in looking into more and understanding more. Sort of my a bit kind of initial thoughts about methane removal is that it's very similar to very temporary carbon removal in a way, like because it has the same effect as taking out that kind of short-term warming. And there's always an alternative cost if you're doing something. So if you do methane removal, then you're not doing the same carbon removal, because if you have a limited pot of money and you're doing some offsetting, or you just have a budget. So then the alternative is sort of, are you doing this long-term carbon removal, or are you just mitigating very short-term harm? And for that to pencil out, it would need to be very, very cheap. But it also has all the same difficulties in my head as like 10-year accounting with like avoided deferred harvests of forests, for example, like where you wait a few years and get that kind of time frame. But maybe you have a good reply to that. So I see there's one more question.
So maybe we'll follow up different. Maybe we'll meet and follow up on that one. If you'll have the time.
Yeah, sounds good. Good insight, Robert. I hadn't thought about that for methane removal, but ultimately it's, you know, if what you're doing is you're breaking the methane down to carbon dioxide, then that's the time, that's the impact really is you're removing that kind of time for it to convert down into carbon dioxide, which is, you know, on the order of, I think, 20 years or something compared to, is that right? Methane breakdown?
Yeah, I mean, all else equal, it's great to remove methane from the air as well. But yeah, it's if you have this alternative to remove carbon, then it is a bit trickier.
All right, good stuff, everybody. We're gonna close.
RP has a question as well.
What's that?
RP here has a question.
RP, what's up? Real quick, the breakout rooms are closing. Go for it. You're on mute.
Sorry. Robert, I've been following you for over a year, about a year now. I've been a member of this group for almost 2 years right now. And in regards to the in regards to kiln tech, are you finding that project developers are kind of collaborating. Like, just for a bit of background, is I deal with kilns daily. I've been working in the concrete industry off and on for 20 years, doing maintenance and installation. It's basically the same thing, just on a smaller scale. Almost all project developers are kind of the bottleneck right now in biochar and scaling biochar is kiln technology. A lot of project devs can't raise 10 million for for the Mercedes-Benz biochar production, the Pyreg system.
Yeah.
Or can't put, they don't have the, when you're dealing with carbon sequestration in large, I guess, equatorial growing regions, that's where most of the waste material is. You're not dealing with you're dealing with brownouts with low access to grid scale power. So all of us we're all repurposing old technology. That being concrete kilns, basically, that we kind of retrofit, and then hopefully Eurofins passes the byproduct. So where I see is like more and more.
RP, I'm gonna jump in because we do have everybody.
Okay.
All the breakout rooms are closed again, so everybody's back here. I do want to make time for people to share. What did you get out of the breakout rooms? This was an experiment. Did anybody get any needs or leads, or you made a connection that you want to share, or some other question or comment that popped up? If you can raise your digital hand.
Tax lawyer.
Hey, what's up? Did you find the tax lawyer?
I found my tax lawyer.
Get out. Really?
Yeah, at least a first indication. Yeah, let's see where it leads.
Wow, they're here in the meeting, or they got somebody connect you to somebody else?
In the meeting.
Get out. That's so cool. What? There's a international tax lawyer here. That's super badass. How about anybody else? Anybody else have something a connection they made, or a something they got? Who was the tax lawyer? Alex, you got your hand up. What did you get out of the breakout rooms that you want to share?
Hey, thanks, Tito. Yeah, I went to about 3 of them, and so the one thing I realized is like, hey, like us as a species, we have no clue to remove carbon from the atmosphere. It's a really tricky problem. Like, we're still all selling pre-offsets and like research offsets, and no one's actually removing carbon at scale from the atmosphere. And like, we're also still pouring into the atmosphere. So, I think the best thing all of us can do is go outside and plant a tree.
Yep. We get to that's what we're here for. We get to discover how to do this, but nobody knows how to do it yet. Thanks for that. Who else? Anybody else have a connection in a breakout room? Either the teams or somebody that just went to a breakout room yourselves. Marcella, Marcella, do you want to come on? Something you got from Niklas to help clarify your business model and value proposition. What's that about?
I hear my sound is not very good. Can you hear me?
You're great.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so Niklas is teaching us there with his enhanced weathering, and I asked him a few questions with regards to his business model that is a little bit parallel to mine, and he was like super candid and really helped me clarify that we are also an R&D company and just how to be bold and propose it as such, and that was really, really valuable. So thank you, Niklas.
Great, Niklas, that's great, and Marcella for being open and sharing about that with Niklas. Props on you for that. Thanks everybody for doing that experiment with us. Really appreciate it. And now I'm going to hand things off to Jason for an announcement. But thanks to all of our teams. Thank you to Robert for leading this program, prototyping this program. All the teams who applied around the world, and all the teams today who are here to share their stories. This is how we discover how to remove billions of tons of carbon dioxide from the air. And that's why AirMiners exists. So with that, Jason has our next event to announce.
Yeah, so actually next 2 events to announce, which I just shared in the chat. One is on June 7th, we're doing MRV for biomass storage. This is above ground storage of just straight up biomass, below ground storage, and also sinking in certain regions of the ocean. And then, not to be outdone, on June 14th, we are having an event on Canada, which a couple of people note is their home and native land with true patriot love. Les at all of your command. So with that, we are going to be hosting a couple more events in the future, and just keep your eyes peeled for future future AirMiners offerings. And happy to say we had an excellent ideas, needs, and leads session yesterday. So open up for that if you've got a new and promising idea that you want to share, or if you have a need that you want to develop for the company that you're working on, then that's the place to come to. I'm going to share or launch that event shortly, so keep your eyes peeled for that. Also look in your inboxes, because we'd love to hear more about what we did well, what we can improve on for this event. So we have a post-event survey. We know that we don't always get things right, but as Tito mentioned, it's all an experiment. We're learning, and we want to do better for the sake of you, our audience. So thank you for that, and we look forward to seeing you at our next AirMiners event. So thanks.